Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
Families can really appreciate the works for their beauty and for their color.
Think about the kind of people we want to be and the kind of nation we want to be in the future.
Giving back to the community is priceless.
Today on Spotlight, how to avoid the holiday blues and put your mental health first this time of year. Plus, it was called the Baby Tooth Survey, what this has to do with radioactive fallout and nuclear energy. And then bold and colorful works of art that the whole family can enjoy at the St. Louis Art Museum. But first, the unique honor bestowed on the area of Olivet and why it's one of 4 places in the world to be awarded this prestige. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
When you look up at the night sky on a clear night, you expect to see stars. But around most cities and towns, you may not be able to see much of anything but darkness. It's because of something called light pollution.
There are 2 or 3 ways in which you can define light pollution. The strictest definition is the introduction of any artificial light into the natural environment. So a more pragmatic definition is the introduction of light into the environment that is not serving any purpose, that is useless.
The type of light used is also important, like using red or amber-colored lights rather than blue or white. In fact, when we spoke with Stephanie Todd of Dark Sky, Missouri, it was dusk, so we switched from lighting her with blue-white light to red.
It's really the blue light in the spectrum is really bad, and everybody's now going to LEDs. People think, they're so cheap, I can get brighter is better. Well, it's not. And so if you have a lot of blue light in the spectrum, it messes up your circadian rhythm. And every living thing has circadian rhythm.
Dark Sky, Missouri is a chapter of the International Dark Sky Association, or IDA, that advocates for environmentally friendly lighting.
And we have 5 principles, actually, of responsible lighting. That's one of them. The warmer colors. Use it only when you need it. Don't have lights on all night long, and motion detectors are great if you think you have to have some light at night. Focus it only where you need it. So, so don't shine up light in the sky, and then the light should be shielded so that you're not shining light up into the sky because it's just wasted light.
Here in the St. Louis area, amateur astronomers can often be seen looking through their telescopes at Stacy Park in the heart of Olivet. In fact, Dark Sky International just named Stacy Park as an official urban dark sky place, the first in Missouri and one of just 4 in the world to get such an honor.
And what that means is that even though we are surrounded by a lot of light pollution, we are a little oasis of darkness. And the way we look at that is it's our practices. So when we use lights here, we follow the IDA guidelines, which are that they're down-facing, they're on a certain spectrum of the lighting, so that we aren't being a bad neighbor and putting light pollution into our neighboring homes, but also we're not adding artificial light that negatively impact fireflies and birds and even trees that grow differently when they have lights on them.
And there was one additional perk.
Well, one thing we noticed that we did not intend was the New York Times mentioned Stacy Park in their article on urban night sky places, so that was amazing.
You don't have to make newspaper headlines to make a difference in your own neighborhood.
Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Holiday cheer. It fills the air. But with all the deadlines, financial stress, travel, fatigue, holiday shopping, holiday pressure, family gatherings, high expectations, loneliness, the loss of loved ones, and the list goes on. That cheer dims. The National Alliance on Mental Illness found that 64% of people living with mental illness reported that their conditions worsened around the holidays. Nurse practitioner Jerry Power is an advanced practice lead for Mercy Go Health Urgent Care. Power says during the holidays, patients experiencing severe cases of depression are seen in the emergency room.
When you get to the level then like emergency care, then we see a lot of people who are suicidal. So we see a lot more suicidal and mental health stuff at that level during the holidays.
This is a very busy time of year in our emergency rooms, especially with behavioral health patients. Mental health crises definitely become exacerbated during the holiday season. Patients often become overwhelmed and desperate for help.
Molly Dwyer-Simonson is the regional director of Mercy's outpatient behavioral health. She says anyone may suffer from holiday stress and holiday blues. In fact, it's perfectly normal when the holidays aren't merry and bright.
For many of us, it's a time where we end up feeling more rushed. We have less time for our routine. We get out of our routine with our children or our families, and we have added stressors that typically only present themselves during the holidays.
Dwyer-Simonson says December is a tough month.
In our state of Missouri, we have things like seasonal affective disorder. So we have less daylight. It's a colder time of year. We have more difficulties getting out and about. But we also have the stressors of the end of the year things. So in addition to the holidays, we may be having times of financial distress, thinking about that tax season approaching.
For those who believe they would suffer from holiday stress and depression, she says there are ways to cope by planning management of your own mental health in advance. And it's not too late to start.
I think the keys for making sure that you have what I call a successful holiday season are being prepared, recognizing those distressing emotions when you're having them, giving yourself permission to feel them versus denying them or criticizing yourself for having them. Limit your social media. Scrolling through all of the things that you see others doing can really lead to that compare and despair cycle that sabotages our wellness during the holidays. Set your limits and boundaries. Family, friends, yourself. What do you really have for time, energy, effort, and finances in advance of the holidays versus reacting in the moment? And then reaching out, staying connected with other people. This is a great time to volunteer if you don't have family or friends that you routinely gather with. It's also a good chance to prioritize yourself. Be intentional. Start to think about what that routine is going to look like. It could be something simple like daily breathing exercises, a morning devotional, or simply sipping your coffee and looking outside. I'm a big advocate of checking in with yourself on a daily basis. So mentally, what do my thoughts look like today? Are those thoughts a positive outlook or are they a negative outlook? How am I talking to myself? Am I affirming the things that I think I'm doing well, or do I find myself criticizing myself?
She says there is community support.
So we'd love for patients to be utilizing 988. We can text that. It's available for our Missouri patients that are struggling with mental health crises.
And help is available through Mercy.
Can access Mercy behavioral health resources by going to mercy.net or calling our intake line at 314-251-0555.
History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. Initiated in December 1958, the St. Louis Baby Tooth Survey measured the effects of radioactive fallout and nuclear energy on children's health. Public historian Andrew Wanko gives us the details of how the survey was conducted.
In the years after the global reshuffling of power that happened in World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union both tested dozens and dozens of nuclear weapons above the ground. These huge nuclear explosions were happening on faraway Pacific islands and in the middle of deserts, but nobody really knew what the long-term effects of these explosions on humanity were going to be. The new benchmarks of power they were achieving were terrifying. In 1954, for instance, the United States tested its Castle Bravo nuclear bomb. That produced an explosion of 15 megatons. That was 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb that hit Hiroshima, Japan in 1945. Citizens were getting concerned about what all these tests might do to humanity, because even though they were happening in places far away, the cloud of radioactive particles they produced, known as fallout, was free to blow wherever the wind might carry it. In 1958, a group of St. Louis scientists, community leaders, and professors founded the St. Louis Committee for Nuclear Information. It was their goal to put some real data behind the concerns everybody had about what nuclear tests were doing to the global population. They knew this was going to be a huge problem, though, because if nuclear fallout was actually affecting the entire world, it would show up equally in everyone. What would you compare it against? They needed some way to test human bodies from before nuclear testing began and after nuclear testing began and compare the two. For the answer to that, they turned to children's teeth. In lost baby teeth, they had an endlessly replenishing supply of testable material. They could mine the collections of medical institutions to find teeth that had been lost long before nuclear testing had started, and they could compare the two. If radioactive elements showed up more inside children's teeth of today, they knew that they had their smoking gun. This study itself, the St. Louis Baby Tooth Survey, was led by Washington University professor Dr. Louise Rice, and they made it their goal to collect as many teeth as possible from St. Louis school kids. Kids from all over the St. Louis region sent in their teeth by mail. They dropped them off at collection spots around their schools or at dentist visits. In response for donating their tooth, they got a button that said, "I gave my tooth to science." And it was amazing the response that this team got. Within 2 years, they were collecting 750 new baby teeth a week. And within these teeth was exactly the evidence they were looking for. The levels of strontium-90, a radioactive byproduct element created in nuclear explosions, was 50 times higher in children born after 1963 than it was in children born in 1950. It was the results of the St. Louis Baby Tooth Survey that helped commit President John F. Kennedy to sign the Partial Test Ban Treaty with the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union, ending the above-ground testing of nuclear weapons by those three countries. The St. Louis Baby Tooth Survey continues to give back to science as well. A number of other baby tooth surveys have been used to prove all sorts of scientific things throughout time, including in 2015 when the lead pollution crisis in Flint, Michigan's water supply was exposed using the exact same process of checking children's lost baby teeth. In 2021, 100,000 of the original St. Louis teeth were donated to Harvard University, where researchers continue to use them to study the long-term effects of environmental effects experienced in childhood. So it's an incredible story of how St. Louis helped stop nuclear testing by turning toward the thing we all lose, our teeth, when we're children.
Next week on History Spotlight, the first president to ride in an airplane and how that flight is connected to St. Louis.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
HEC Media, bringing you culture and community. Find all of HEC's positive programming and award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
Visits to the dentist are a regular part of life for most kids. But for others, it's not that simple.
You see it everywhere, not only in St. Louis, but all over the country and all over the world, that so many kids just don't have access to dental care.
That need is what sparked Dr. Jeffrey Dalen to co-found Give Kids a Smile in 2001.
Give Kids a Smile is just basically, it's a program where we do full service dentistry for children who have no access to dental care.
It's always been a family affair. At age 10, Dr. Dalen's son Andy played games with kids in line, and his nephew Daniel helped out too. Now both those men join Dr. Dalen and volunteer as practicing dentists.
With a program like Give Kids a Smile, we can provide not only that dental care that's so highly needed, but also the education so both the kids and the parents are more educated about oral health in the future.
Giving back to the community and seeing the reaction of the families is priceless.
Twice a year, the men join other dentists, dental hygienists, and volunteers on the campus of St. Louis University. Their mission: give back to the community with free dental care.
There are a lot of children that have not been to the dentist ever in their lives. They have no access to dental care. That's the sad part, because they will have problems in school because they're in pain. They'll not eat properly. They have poor self-esteem. They don't want to smile and show their teeth.
For many families, the clinics are life-changing.
It's a blessing because she has had some dental issues that we've been trying to get taken care of. And to know that there's a service that's available to the community, to those that need the help.
The American Dental Association adopted the idea, and now every February, there are Give Kids a Smile clinics across the country.
And this is 2023, this is United States of America. Kids should not be going to sleep in pain. And that's why we get plenty of volunteers here and around the country. I mean, millions of children have been seen since the American Dental Association adopted it. So we're talking, their estimate is 7-8 million children have received dental care.
In the fall of 2022, Give Kids a Smile focused on another vulnerable population in St. Louis, immigrants.
Some of them don't even speak English, but we somehow, a lot of hand motions and open, close and things like that, and we can get through it. And so everybody, had a good time.
It's really just an amazing experience. It's really hard to kind of put into words. It's a very positive atmosphere. Everyone is so gracious.
Clinics include everything from cleanings and fillings to bonding and other repairs. Families seeking care must make an appointment. Information is on the group's website, gkas.org.
Children, it's normal for them to be a little reluctant at first, but overall there's so much fun there that I think the kids generally leave on a very good note.
Since its beginning, Give Kids a Smile has provided more than 16,000 St. Louis area children with more than $9.5 million in dental care.
It just puts your mind at ease and makes your heart just feel so warm because you know that someone else out there has a concern for the children who need the help.
In 2022, the American Dental Association recognized Dr. Dalen with its Humanitarian of the Year award for his efforts.
I was speechless. I mean, it's just hard to fathom, that I could get anything like that. But again, it's as I said when I accepted the award, it's for everybody who's ever done a Give Kids a Smile program anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world. So they all shared in that award, not just me.
It's been really cool to see all the recognition he's got for all of his hard work over the years. Obviously, this small little idea that started in St. Louis 20 years ago was adopted by the ADA the next year, and now 2 decades later, there's been millions of kids across the country who have gotten free dental work that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten without this program.
A book made into a movie, later on Spotlight.
We are in the St. Louis Art Museum in an exhibition that we just opened with the work of the artist Ellsworth Kelly. This exhibition is part of a group of exhibitions across North America that have celebrated the centennial of Kelly's birth in 1923. And in St. Louis, we have a great group of his works in this city. And we were able to complement that with works from our collection, and importantly, some recent gifts. So this exhibition is also celebrating the recent gift of a major outdoor sculpture from the Ellsworth Kelly Foundation, which we have on view on the South Terrace. Alongside that, we have the recent promised gift of a shaped canvas from Emily Pulitzer, and also a plant drawing from her. Ellsworth Kelly is a leading post-war American abstract artist. He's somebody who really explored a whole range of different kinds of abstraction. One of the areas that's most interesting to me and which we explore in this exhibition is his use of shaped canvases. He kind of subverted the traditional idea that a canvas should be a rectangle or a square. In this exhibition, you'll see a range of shaped canvases. So he was kind of exploring the idea that a painting could also be a sculpture. The Pulitzer Promise Gift painting is called Purple Panel, and it is a wonderful example of Kelly's shaped canvases. One of the things I like about that work is its subtlety. Maybe from a distance it looks like a triangle, but when you actually look closely, you can see that each edge of the canvas has a slight bow to it, a slight curve, and it adds a real kind of elegance to the shape of the canvas that I think is very characteristic of Kelly's work. One of the really interesting things about Kelly's work for me is its connection to nature. We think of him as an abstract painter, but his abstraction was grounded in nature. And we really explore that in this exhibition. We have a group of plant drawings, and then alongside that we have a large print, which is called River 2, the kind of abstracted surface of a river, where you really get a sense of the light and the reflections across the surface of the water. So I think that kind of dialogue between nature and abstraction was always really key to Ellsworth Kelly's work. Kelly's work, in part because of its luminous color, is work which really appeals to families. I have an 8-year-old daughter, her favorite painting in the museum is actually Spectrum 2. She calls it the rainbow painting. They're very thoughtful, very well conceived works, but they have broad appeal. And I love that about this exhibition, that we can bring families into the show and they can really appreciate the works for their beauty and for their color. It is a free exhibition, so we welcome families, kids, anybody who wants to come to this show. I think will have a really great experience. So you can see this show through April the 7th, and if you want to find out more information, please visit slam.org.
HEC Media, recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries, individual craft achievements to overall excellence. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
Before Killers of the Flower Moon smashed the box office this year, it was a #1 New York Times bestseller by author David Grann. We sat down with Grann to discuss the importance of the story and what he hopes it will bring to modern audiences.
It was perhaps the most sinister murder conspiracy in American history, perpetrated against a nation of original Americans.
The real death toll was not the official death toll the Bureau gave of about 27, that it was in the scores, if not hundreds.
David Grann's runaway bestseller, Killers of the Flower Moon, tells the forgotten story of America's Osage Indians, whose astounding plight in the 1920s was not born of poverty, but of riches, because underneath their reservation was an ocean of oil.
They were considered the wealthiest people per capita then in the world. So we said at the time, whereas one American might own a car, each Osage owned 11 of them.
Their wealth made the Osage attractive targets for cold-blooded con men, who sometimes even married their victims, took their money, and then their lives.
These murder schemes were essentially inheritance schemes, and it's one of the things that made these crimes so deeply sinister. My hope is with a movie, a book reaches so many people, but a movie can reach even more. That this story will become part of our national narrative, will become part of our consciousness and part of our conscience, which is where it belongs.
It's not just putting together a jigsaw puzzle, you have to go out and find the pieces to put into the puzzle.
100%, and I'm a big believer that, you kind of have to do that work. And, I would spend weeks at various archives, and for days and days, you kind of find nothing. And then one day, almost through serendipity, you open a folder, and there is the secret grand jury testimony from one of the trials that had never been made public and wasn't even properly filed. And it suddenly cracks open this world, and you hear the voices of the people you're writing about.
Again, for the 5 people who haven't read the book, I don't want to spoil the ending. So we won't go into if justice was meted out, although I think you can probably guess for the most part that the story kind of goes in that direction. But it's your belief, I think, from the research that you came up with that makes up the 3rd section of the book,
yes,
that there's a lot more out there that could be uncovered.
Yes, and one of the things in speaking to so many Osage, getting their oral histories and getting documents, is you begin to realize that there are a lot of other suspicious deaths that were never properly investigated, and that the case was effectively closed prematurely. And one of the great challenges is, and I'd always thought in reporting and telling stories like this that you can't bring justice, but you can at least provide a proper accounting, which is to say you can identify the perpetrators and record the voices of the victims. But in many cases, that's no longer possible. Suspects are deceased, the witnesses are deceased, and this was a conspiracy in which people, were consciously covering up evidence. You had morticians covering up bullet wounds, doctors covering up the crimes, you had lawmen covering it up. And so in many of these cases, you can't provide that proper accounting. And for me, that was one of the most haunting parts, is that in many cases, the murderers had not only erased the lives of their victims, but they had also erased their history. And many Osage to this day live with gnawing doubts, not knowing precisely who was responsible for the death in the family and the absconding with their money. It's it's too late to bring justice. We're talking, you can't bring justice. You can't bring people back to life. But my hope is that we can at least restore some of our history so that we can know more about our past. And in knowing more about our past, also think about the kind of people we want to be and the kind of nation we want to be in the future. And I hope that'll be the takeaway as people move forward.
Maybe some good can come of it.
One hopes.
David Grant, thanks very much for
Thank
visiting
you.
with us. Appreciate it.
Watch the full interview with Grant at hecmedia.org. You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe will help to make the seasons bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas.
Next week, helping intellectually and physically disabled students work to earn a degree, plus the history and meaning of Hanukkah. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.